Welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in the studios of 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. We're also joined today, of course, as always, I'm joined by Ronnie Dahl in our studios. And we're also joined by a number of other community media outlets, including 88.1 WBFH, The Biff out of Bloomfield Hills, and Birmingham Area Municipal Access. On television, both our stations can be found on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99, as well as online in high definition on CivicCenterTV.com. You'll click on the Watch Live link and we'll be right there. Today also we're on the Facebook page of the Greater West Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce, and thank them for being with us today. Our Facebook partners, we continue to bring you the latest news and information from all around the Oakland County area in regards to the coronavirus pandemic, as well as other top stories as they continue to file in during this election year, during a time where we have protests still going on nationally and internationally for various social movements and more. We're going to continue to be your source for local news here in Oakland County each and every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon on the Oakland County Megacast, and bringing you your top stories each and every day on CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus. For today, our top stories: absentee ballots that arrive after the election will not count. The Michigan Appeals Court has denied a request to require the counting of absentee ballots received after the time that polls close on Election Day. The ruling says that the deadline remains intact despite voters' approval of a constitutional amendment that expanded mail-in voting in Michigan, which is seen as one of the battleground states in November's presidential election. The court, in a 2-1 decision released Wednesday, says it is up to lawmakers to change the deadline. The League of Women Voters of Michigan and 3 voters sued in May, seeking a declaration that absentee ballots be counted as long as they are mailed on or before Election Day and are received within 6 days of the election. So this is a big ruling, Ronnie, because this is going to impact the upcoming primary elections and the upcoming general elections, certainly, as people will have to get their ballots in early and be in early enough to where not only are they postmarked before the election, they need to arrive before the election deadline, before the polls close on the day of these elections. So everybody's got to get their votes in that much earlier, barring any sort of overruling from the state's legislature.
You know, they say the road to the White House runs straight through Michigan. So this is going to be important. This could have a big impact on the elections here in Michigan, because you have to remember the Postal Service right now is slow. So if you're counting on your ballot to get there, and there's going to be so many more mail-in ballots this year, you need to get it in extra early for it to count. So this could have a big impact on the outcome of this election.
Yeah, a lot of questions I've seen on social media and other platforms on how much postage is going to be needed to send in your absentee ballot. It varies depending on the weight and depending on the type of paper. I know for most postage, and then on top of that, you have this now where, like you said, the Postal Service is significantly slow. They have less people working for them. They're losing funding by the day, and that certainly contributes to the speed of their delivery of mail, especially of important mail like absentee ballots. And so people have to take into account that there's going to be a significant amount of time less to get your absentee ballot submitted and into whatever municipality you're submitting it to in order for your votes to be counted. So we'll definitely continue to cover that story, as I'm sure this is far from over, as some may refer to that as voter suppression, others may refer to it as a way to get fast and prudent election results. So it's going to be something, I think, this especially as November approaches, but even as the August 4th primary in the state of Michigan approaches, that this is going to be a continued debate in the state of Michigan. Also making news on CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus. A judge rules in favor of the governor's decision to close indoor movie theaters. Judge Paul Maloney of the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Michigan has upheld Governor Gretchen Whitmer's order to keep indoor movie theaters closed at this point during the pandemic. The lawsuit was brought by Imagine Theater in Royal Oak, in a quote, "Today, the court concluded what we already know, that we must continue taking aggressive action against COVID-19. including limiting large gatherings to protect Michigan families and save lives, the governor said. COVID-19 is still a very real threat in Michigan, and the brave men and women on the front lines of this crisis are counting on us to all do our part. In closed quote from the governor. In June, Imagine Theater announced celebration of Juneteenth holiday with a film festival that was set to take place against the governor's order. After the Michigan Attorney General's office threatened criminal charges against the company, Chairman Paul Glantz reversed the decision to hold the event. So, any chance of movie theaters opening before Phase 5 still looking very slim, especially after Judge Paul Maloney made this ruling in favor of the governor.
Are you surprised by this ruling at all?
Not one bit. I think that with the close proximity people are in movie theaters, and even if you space people out, there's a lot of switchover between each showing of each movie. Are they going to show less movies in a given day, which then puts into question, well, are you still profitable at that point, or are you losing as much as they're already losing now by not being open? And not to mention they have number of employees that are coming in each and every day, a number of people that are coming in each and every day, not only for movies but also for food, for the games, and for other amenities that may be present in all these theaters. There's a lot of different variables that come into play that make me feel like this is not all that surprising that the governor continues to push for this rule and that the judges have ruled in favor of her.
It's been weird not to go to the movie theater for the big summer blockbusters, and I know the filmmakers are trying to find other avenues to get the movies out there, and they're doing it through some of those streaming services. But there's nothing like watching some movies on that big screen, and you lose part of that movie watching experience.
Yeah, it's definitely a different experience when you're watching it in the home versus in the movie theater. Some movies I prefer to just watch at home and wait for them to be released, or wait for me to see them on TV at some point, or on a streaming service. And others are movies that I know I have to experience this in the theater. So very odd times for avid moviegoers as this pandemic continues on, and the industry, like many others, has to pivot and make changes. Other stories at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. There's a push to extend federal unemployment benefits. Panic is setting for those collecting federal unemployment but still have no hope of returning to work. Under the Federal CARES Act passed in March, Congress lengthened the duration of unemployment benefits to 39 weeks, providing an extra $600 a week for 4 months. But that's set to expire at the end of July. Now, some Michigan representatives are efforting to move an extension through Washington. Quote, people think none of us care, but we do care, and that's why this matters, says U.S. Representative Debbie Dingell. According to the Economic Policy Institute, the pandemic, 36.4 million people have applied for unemployment benefits nationwide, and 2.4 million workers applied for benefits just last week. So 36.4 million people have applied, and 2.4 million last week. 50,000 of them from the state of Michigan. A lot of people still on unemployment. A lot of people, even though they have returned to work, some are still not returning to work for the foreseeable future, or are not, quote unquote, essential to their given company that they work for, or able to find another job at this point in time. And as their benefits are set to expire, they're going to go back to just the statewide benefits, which are significantly less, even less than that extra $600 a week for the duration of their unemployment. So this is a point where when we say there's a bit of panic setting in, that's definitely the case, Ronnie.
We talked to both Gary Peters and Debbie Stabenow about this when they were on with us, and there are efforts in D.C. to get this extended, but we're also hearing from business owners that are having a hard time getting employees to return to the job because they're making more on unemployment than they would be if they went back to work.
It's a continuing situation that's very complicated, because you want to have some incentive, if you have available work, to go back to work and not stay at home, even though you may be concerned, whether or not you're concerned about the coronavirus impacting your ability to do your job safely. But at the same time, a lot of these people are on unemployment because they don't have a job available to them, and they definitely need these benefits to survive which also impacts other issues that we're seeing. Like yesterday, we talked at length with Representative Brenda Carter about the landlord and tenant issues as the state's moratorium on evictions expired. So there are mounting issues, too, that are related to this that may create more incentive from a government standpoint to extend that deadline out a little bit further. Also making news at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, Michigan hires an accounting firm to help investigate unemployment fraud. Michigan is contracting with multinational accounting giant Deloitte to assist with prevention and prosecution of widespread unemployment fraud. As of June 12th, the UIA has flagged 140,000 unemployment claims as being potentially fraudulent, and State Attorney General Dana Nessel launched a task force for collaboration with the UIA, State Police, and Department of Labor, and the Economic Opportunity Department, or LEO, to investigate. Deloitte will review the programs and systems at the UIA and assist with the investigation of imposter and fraudulent claims, the UIA said in an announcement. To continue on, Deloitte has extensive experience with state unemployment and workforce systems across the country and will provide valuable financial and systems knowledge as the UIA continues to process an historic number of claims during this health and economic crisis. The Unemployment Insurance Agency has paid nearly $15 billion with a B to more than 2 million claimants since Governor Gretchen Whitmer issued a state of emergency over the coronavirus pandemic originally in March. Suspected fraud led to increased scrutiny and longer wait times for Michigan residents seeking unemployment benefits, and we'll have plenty on that and more updates on how the unemployment agency is faring with this and how our workers are faring with getting contact and getting information about their claims later on in the show. But some help and some reinforcements being called in. I think a little bit late, but better late than never, Ronnie.
This has been a mess from the beginning, but again, they've never had so many people apply for unemployment and at the same time and need it so quickly. So anytime there's a rush, you're putting a strain on the system. And of course, there's going to be fraud with that as well.
Yeah, it's not necessarily entirely the fault of the Unemployment Insurance Agency or of the people that are employed by the Unemployment Insurance Agency or even by those that are applying for unemployment, that you have these scumbags that, of course, are preying on the unemployed and those who are vulnerable financially all throughout the country right now, knowing that unemployment claims are at an all-time high because of the pandemic. There's going to be a slew of those claims, and maybe you can slip through the cracks and pull one over somebody and get a lot of money coming to you. That's ultimately not going to be your problem when people from the state of Michigan or from other states come back to collect that from the person that you effectively stole their identity from. So maybe Deloitte's help will alleviate some of these issues that the UIA has been having, and maybe get some people those checks that they've still been waiting for. We'll keep up on that for sure as more develops. And then yesterday, late in the show, we had this come up, and this is still big news right now. A new program has launched to help tenants and landlords a new program is launched to help tenants avoid eviction and help alleviate issues between tenants and landlords. The Eviction Diversion Program, or EDP, is being administered by the Michigan Housing Development Authority in collaboration with the Michigan Supreme Court and Department of Health and Human Services. The state's eviction moratorium ended on Wednesday, and as part of this new program, an allocation of $50 million was set aside to help tenants and landlords resolve eviction filings with conditional dismissals. Tenants making up to 100% of the area's median income are eligible for rental assistance. Participating landlords can receive up to 90% of a tenant's unpaid rent in a one lump sum. In exchange, landlords must dismiss any late fees up to 10% of the amount due and allow tenants to stay in their homes. Quote, at a time filled with a lot of uncertainty, the eviction diversion program offers some peace of mind for tenants and landlords, said Kelly Rose, the Michigan State Housing Development Authority Chief Housing Solutions Officer. Continuing the quote, we understand how important housing is as a foundation for success in many other areas of life. That's why we're committed to leveraging the EDP to preserve tenant housing in as many cases as possible across the state. This coming at a much needed time too, Ronnie.
there's so much expense when you have to move, not only for the tenant, but also for the landlord. Someone moves out, you have to go in, you have to rehab the place, paint it, clean it. And then for the tenant, if you have to find a new place to live, there's usually a security deposit and all the expense of moving over the utilities and things of that nature. So it really does benefit both sides if we can find a way to get them to stay where they are, and also so that people don't end up homeless.
Yeah, and we already have enough of a homeless crisis, definitely in major cities all throughout the United States, but really just in a general case, all throughout the United States, and even and especially during a pandemic where the issues that lead to homelessness are only exacerbated. Having these systems in place to help prevent people who are in their homes right now and are struggling to stay in their homes to be allowed to be in their homes continuously is absolutely vital and important to our society. That's all our news at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. You can go there for our top stories each and every day before our shows and during our shows to keep up with the latest news and information on coronavirus and more, and find resources that will help you from the national organizations such as the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, as well as state resources like the state of Michigan and Oakland County's website, and more information from your hometown, whether that be in West Bloomfield, Keagle Harbor, Orchard Lake, or Sylvan Lake, or some of our own other municipalities like Rochester, Pontiac, Auburn Hills, and more. CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus, your home for coronavirus-related news during this time and more, as we continue to bring you the latest information that you need to know from around Oakland County about COVID-19 and so much more. As this pandemic's been, of course, affecting our local businesses, it's been affecting the housing market and affecting tenants and landlords, as we just spoke about. But it's also affecting students, and within that group of students, it's really having an effect on international students who are coming into our colleges and our universities, trying to get a sense of higher education and get themselves prepared for great careers. And this is certainly an uncertain time for them as well. And joining us to talk about that is the executive director of global engagement for Oakland University's international education, Rosemary Max, joins us now on the Oakland County Megacast. Rosemary, thank you for being with us today.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
How are you? How's your team been at Oakland?
We're good. We're hanging in there. It's been a lot over the past couple weeks and over the past couple months, but, we're doing our best to serve our students and keep their morale up.
So previously, there were guidelines that were being put out by ICE and by the U.S. government that would require international students, to be taking at least one in-person class, or they could potentially be facing deportation back to their home countries. That's since been rescinded. It's been blocked by the courts. But that was really causing a scare for international students, especially earlier on in this week, as they face the potential of being sent back home if they're still in the country during a pandemic, or not being able to continue their education with people that they know and places that they know, and with and programs that they are familiar with and that are, they believe, successful enough to bring them potentially great careers going forward. How have they been faring through this really rough week?
So at the beginning, when we got this news, it came late. Given the start of the semester is not far off, it was a little bit of a shock. And so we were scrambling to find out how many students were at that point enrolled in 100% online, and how we would work to get them an in-person or a hybrid course. And it also affects students outside of the country as to whether they can even get back to the U.S., whether they should come back, and what kind of status they would be in outside of the U.S. if they couldn't get back. So it was really affecting students inside the U.S. and students who went home for the summer, let's say, and were trying to come back. And so since the guidance was made essentially a 180-degree turn, there's been obviously a soothing effect, calming down effect. Students who are in country now know that they can take the courses that they need to complete their studies, to fulfill their major, and they don't have to start scrambling and looking for courses that they may not need, or just register for something that would cost them money and time that they may not have needed. And ultimately, they were most afraid of having to go home if they couldn't find those courses, and so all that has been remedied thanks to the lawsuit.
And we're really fortunate here in Michigan, especially at our universities here in this state, that we have such a diverse population of international students at really at all of our universities. In particular graduated from Michigan State University, and we have so many different cultures that are brought onto campus by bringing in these international students who come in from all over the world to study at our universities here in Michigan. Just how critical are international students to the university culture in all of our universities in the state of Michigan, particularly at Oakland University?
That's a great question. As you mentioned, the state of Michigan is really blessed with great universities and universities that attract a lot of international students. And, Oakland has a great group of international students, and we're just so happy to have them. And in general, I think these students, a lot of them are in STEM fields. So they are the people that go, and in business. And so they're the people that go on to create companies in our state. They complete their PhDs in engineering and math, and they go on and become faculty members at our universities. And so these are the people that teach our kids physics, math, chemistry, engineering, computer science. They are the graduate assistants that, help faculty currently at our universities. And on top of that, annually they bring about $1.2 billion to Michigan. So that's a lot of money, and it translates into jobs.
Rosemary Max with us. She is the Executive Director for Global Engagement for Oakland University's International Education. And on top of that, not only are international students coming in for schooling, they're also staying over the summers and are working and are helping boost our economy and learning continuously over the summers in the state of Michigan. And on top of that, a lot of them maybe will, when they graduate, are thinking, I want to live in the state of Michigan and be here afterwards. So the continued impact of having international students to the community is so far and vast beyond just having them learn on campus, because it helps not only diversify the cultures that we have on our college campuses, but also increase the diversity of our cultures and our learning abilities in the general community as well.
Yeah, and the whole idea behind the international student, or what used to be called the foreign student program many years ago, is that we bring people to the United States who learn about our culture, learn about our politics, learn about our way of being, our government, our democracy. And these are people who even if they come to the United States for a very particular reason, to get a degree, and they're very focused, our culture gets under their skin in a very good way, and they are wonderful ambassadors for us, whether they stay here or whether they go home. So it's just so important from just a diplomatic standpoint for the United States as well.
So, Rosemary, we talked about the students that come here. What about the Oakland University students that travel abroad? How is the university preparing them, and is that program changing?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And Oakland sends a lot of students abroad in the summer, and all those programs were canceled this summer. So all those students that had taken time to apply and identify a program and get their families excited and save money to go, those programs were unable to run. Many of the programs that we would run in the fall term are also, not going. We have a handful of students, maybe 4 or 5, that are still hoping to go to countries depending on the situation here and the situation there. So it's greatly hampered study abroad. And just in the study abroad world in general, we have partners that also provide us programs, and those partners have been laying off staff, cutting back programs, really slimming down. And so everybody's in a little bit of a retrenchment or a retraction at this point. And we're hoping that by this time next year that we'll have better news and things will be back to normal. But it's been devastating for our kids who want to go abroad as well.
Rosemary, as the university prepares for the fall and as students prepare for returning to campus and returning to classes online as well, in this current state that we're in, what are the challenges that are being faced by students that are coming in from international locations? Either they went back home during the pandemic and are trying to get back for school, or even those, like you mentioned, the study abroad programs are probably going to be offline. So in particular, the students that are coming back in the fall, what challenges are they facing in terms of getting housing in the local area, in terms of getting back in general to the Oakland University area in Rochester to be able to study in the fall?
Well, That's another great question. There are two big challenges for, well, maybe even three, for students coming back from overseas for the fall. One is that there are still currently 4 travel bans out. So one for China, one for all EU citizens, one's for Iran, and one for Brazil. So any citizen from any of those places cannot enter the United States right now. So many of our students who'd like to come back, unless those travel bans are removed, will not be able to come back this fall. The other piece is that U.S. embassies and consulates overseas are just now starting to kind of reopen and phase in visa issuance. So students who would need their actual visa to come in, which they all do, may get an appointment to get a visa, may not. So that's another big piece. The third piece is logistics. What planes are flying? How expensive are they? How can they get here? And then once they do, they'll find a different campus. My colleagues in other areas on campus have been preparing for what does class look like in this environment? How far do we have to be sitting apart? How often do things have to be cleaned? We'll all be wearing masks. So things will be much different on campus for all students, not just for international students.
Rosemary, is there anything else that's important for us to touch on that we haven't spoken on today that you'd like to let us know before we let you go today?
Just to reemphasize that this is such a great group of kids. They're very focused international students. They love our country. That's why they come here. That's why they pick us. And we are working hard, as all my colleagues are across the United States, to make sure that they still feel welcome here. And we realize the part that plays in making Michigan a welcoming environment for them. And we want them to continue to choose the United States and Michigan for decades to come.
Rosemary, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
We appreciate it. Rosemary Max with us. She is the Executive Director of Global Engagement for Oakland University's International Education with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Ronnie, it's interesting to get that angle too, because we've talked so much about high school, middle school, and elementary school students, and about their teachers, and about their students that are usually coming back each year from within our community and not necessarily traveling in. And even we've talked to local colleges as well, especially Oakland University, and it's interesting to get an idea of how these students that are coming in from all around the world to Michigan, to southeastern Michigan, to Oakland County, to Oakland University, and other universities in the state of Michigan as well, their perspective, as they have been in many ways living here for a year to 4 years as they've been working on their higher education. And this creates a whole different dilemma for them in terms of whether or not they can come back, whether or not they should come back, and whether or not they'll be able to come back to their university or college in the fall.
Well, and it's not just if they do make it here. If we have a second surge, they may end up getting stuck here if in the fall time, if we have that second wave, which they are predicting. My niece was actually studying in Florence, Italy, when they got sent home early. Such an education in itself for these students to be able to travel abroad and study abroad. It's an opportunity you probably won't get again in your entire lifetime. And you can't get it out of a book, Tyler. You have to live it and be a part of it. And that's how you embrace the culture. So these programs bring a lot to our communities and to the students. And hopefully this ends soon so that we can continue these programs, because we all benefit from it.
We do, and it helps us also as we send students internationally for study abroad programs. They're able to soak in the culture and soak in different ways of learning and different ways of living and bring that back here. And similarly, when we have international students come in, they bring those ideas and those differences as well. And that creates a more diverse world and a different way of looking at the world that we're living in here in the state of Michigan, on our campuses, on various college campuses in the United States, and create a more unified system of living. So I think that there's so many benefits to having international students come in, to having our students go internationally, that it's really interesting to get that angle from Rosemary Max from Oakland University in terms of how that may look different in the fall and what challenges are still being faced. Well, there's still a lot of challenges also being faced with unemployment issues in the state of Michigan. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll speak with Rachael Kohl from the University of Michigan's Workers' Rights Clinic at the U of M Law School on the Oakland County Megacast. You're watching and listening to us on a family of TV and radio stations. Ronnie and I will return after this break.
Oakland County Clerk Lisa Brown here with some important reminders about voting. Always use a blue or black ink pen when completing your ballot. Fill in the box next to your choice. Don't use an X, check mark, or circle your choice. In the August primary, don't cross party lines. Under Michigan election law, you can only vote for one party's candidates. Otherwise, your ballot will be spoiled and the partisan section won't count. Don't forget to check both sides of your ballot and vote the nonpartisan section. If you want to vote absentee, send a written request to your city or township clerk. Your ballot must be returned to your city or township clerk's office by 8 p.m. election night. And be sure to sign and date the outer envelope. If you spilled coffee on your ballot or made a mistake, you can ask your city or township clerk to cancel that ballot and issue a new one. Please don't use whiteout. If you already returned your absentee ballot and want to change your vote, you need to contact your city or township clerk no later than 4 p.m. the day before the election. Thank you for taking part in our democratic process.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the Medical Director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft alongside Ronnie Dahl in the studios of 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. In addition, today, as always, we're on Birmingham Area Municipal Access, both of our TV stations on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. We're also on the radio, of course, right here, 89.3 Lakes FM, and on 88.1 WBFH, The Biff out of Bloomfield Hills High School. We thank station manager Ron Whittables for helping us get on the air each and every day over at WBFH The Biff. In addition, today we're on the Facebook page of the Greater West Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce. Thanks Suzanne Levine and her entire team over there, Vito Kukuro as well, their social media manager, for partnering with us today, and we appreciate you tuning in on their page today via Facebook Live as we talk about mounting issues throughout the Oakland County area and the state of Michigan regarding the COVID-19 pandemic and more. And one of the top issues that has amounted from this pandemic has been a major unemployment issue in the state of Michigan, and we've kept on top of this as best as possible, and we're going to continue to do that. And joining us once again on the show to talk about any updates on that situation is Rachael Kohl. She's a professor and the director of the Workers' Rights Clinic at the University of Michigan Law School, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Rachel, thank you for being with us again today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So previously, the Unemployment Insurance Agency, the UIA, had set forth a goal that by July 4th, they were going to have all backlogged cases from March through the end of May to be updated and be cleared. Is that the case? Did that end up happening, or was that too lofty of a goal?
So I don't have exact data if they actually were able to do that. We have a couple of people that we've had with like some lingering issues that they weren't able to actually get filed in time. So they should probably be in that category. But we've been able to work with the agency and send some cases over that we've seen issues for, and the agency quickly resolves them. So they're doing their best with the limited staff that they have and the very large uptick in claims that they have to process.
Rachel, as this has gone on, and in particular with the fraud issue that had come up, the UIA had put a specific number of staffers on that initially. I believe it was in the low hundreds, and then they almost doubled that staff shortly after realizing that they didn't have nearly enough people working on these hundreds of thousands of claims. Since that new staff has been trained, have you noticed that the people that you work with or people that you're hearing stories from about their experiences with the UIA are having a little bit easier of a time, still a difficult time, or no change at all in at least getting some information about the status of their unemployment claim?
So as far as identity verification goes, we've seen a lot fewer calls on that issue since for the last couple of weeks. So I think that the agency has been able to verify a majority of the people that they flagged for this issue, and they did that by, like you said, really doubling down and getting more people on the phones to verify these identities to make sure that these are proper claims. That said, I don't have more information on how well the agency is doing there and how well the state's task force is doing in making sure that who was actually flagged was flagged. They haven't really given us any data on that at all yet.
Rachael Kohl with us. She's the director of the Workers' Rights Clinic at the University of Michigan Law School with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Rachael, the state hired an accounting firm to help investigate the unemployment fraud and help Michigan, the state of Michigan and the UIA's systems work through these cases a little bit more effectively, or a little bit more efficiently at least. Can you give us a little more details from what you know on what role they're going to play in helping the Unemployment Insurance Agency, and any sort of forecast on how that may help the people of Michigan who are still waiting for their claims or waiting for information to get their status check?
Yeah, so this was just announced yesterday that they've hired, I think Deloitte is the company,
Yes.
And they are going to be involved in the identity theft issues, and I think they're going to look at some programming issues because, as we've discussed in the past, MIDAS, the agency's computer program, has been fraught with issues since its implementation in 2013. In 2013, between 2013 and 2015, it wrongly charged up to 60,000 determinations of fraud for 46,000 people of Michigan at a 93% error rate, meaning that it charged people with fraud, this computer system, without any human oversight. And these people had to pay back all their benefits times 4 plus interest. So some people are, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90,000, upwards of $100,000 that they had to pay back. And this is the same system that they use now. They just have humans that are supposed to look at it. And beyond the false fraud issues that happened from 2013 to 2015 with this system, the system has also been extremely over-programmed to flag any possible issues. Sometimes even when there should not even be issues, these people are eligible and qualified under our statute. And that's something that I'm still seeing happen now, but it's been an issue since 2013.
Shifting away from the unemployment benefits, can you talk a little bit about employee rights as they head back to work during this pandemic? If they test negative, how long do they have to be out? Do they have to use their sick time? There are so many questions around this. And can they sue their employer if they get sick, if the employer wasn't taking recommended precautions?
So my best advice for any worker out there is to try to work with your employer with whatever situation you have, because this is uncharted water for both workers and employers. And everyone's trying to do their best in a situation that is not ideal for anybody. That said, you deserve to work in a place that's safe. And you also, if you are sick, you shouldn't go to work. And your employer should understand that. So if you do think that some law has been violated, I encourage you to seek out an employment law firm and seek a consultation with them. But jumping right to a lawsuit is not always the best call. Usually you can work these things out, and so you don't lose your job, so that you don't alienate your relationship with a place that, if you have enjoyed working there, you might want to continue working there. But also you want to make sure that your employers are required to make sure that you're safe. And they have to abide by certain basic protections. And if you have concerns with that, there's reporting mechanisms with MIOSHA, which is the Michigan Occupational Safety Group, the State Department, and you can file complaints there as well.
So many facets to this going forward, and as you said, uncharted water that we're going into, what would you say to the employers about how they should handle this so that they can contain it? Because at the end of the day, they still have to run a business as well, correct?
Right. Well, I encourage employers to really look at the work share program. So this is a program that employers can sign up for that will help both to ensure that, because a lot of employers aren't bringing people back at the same capacity as they had before. So they're cutting people's hours, and they need to in order to preserve their business. But there is a work share program that allows for claimants or employees to be able to kind of make up that offset amount by being a part of this work share program that the employer signs up for. If they are reduced 50% in their hours, they would get 50% of the weekly unemployment benefits in addition to their wages. And employers get to retain their staff, which is that's a great asset for employers. You don't have to train people, you don't have to hire new people, you don't have to put in any resources or money into trying to find and hire new people. And so this also is encouraging for claimants too, because then they can work and make up the difference, even though they have been cut in their hours.
Rachael Kohl with us. She is the director of the Workers' Rights Clinic at the University of Michigan Law School. And Rachael, on top of that, how do people get involved with the Workshare program? How do employers find more information so that they can bring in these workers, and how do workers find more information so they can sign up if they are claimants looking for work, so that while they're waiting for any reply from the Unemployment Insurance Agency?
So there's a lot of information about Workshare on the agency's website for employers, and there's also information, you can sign up for it through the employer's MyWAM account. And you'll have to set up a program for which employees that you have to cut hours for, and you'll have to set that up. But the agency will work with you to try to make that happen, because this is really a win-win-win situation for everybody, because the employers get to retain their workforce, the employees get to have wages and money that make up for their lost wages, and right now for the CARES Act, through the end of the year, all Workshare program is coming from the federal government for funding rather than the state's trust fund. So this will help Michigan's state budget as well. So the agency is encouraged to try to help employers set up these programs. So if you are trying to set up a program, there's also an employer ombudsman number that you can call. I know that there's also there is going to be some lag time between when the agency can pick up that call, but there is a contact number there, and they will get back to you because they want employers to sign up for this program.
Rachael, the federal unemployment benefits are set to expire soon. That would take away $600 a week in additional benefits for unemployed people in the state of Michigan and all throughout the country. Any talks in the state of Michigan that you've been hearing about helping to bridge that gap a little bit and maybe increase the low-end limit that people are going to be able to make off of unemployment from the state level in case the federal unemployment benefits do not get extended in any sort of way?
Well, and so that's a really interesting point. The reason why we even needed that extra $600 a week is because Michigan's weekly benefit amount, the max is $362. That's been the max since 2002. So we've basically been at the same maximum that you could get from unemployment for almost 20 years. And in 2002, when $362 was the increased number, that was about 58% of the average weekly wage in the state. Now $362 is 35% of the average weekly wage of the state. So the $600 was meant to try to help people be able to bridge that gap, because there's other states like Michigan that haven't increased their weekly benefit amount in so many years. There is, I know, a House bill and I believe a corresponding Senate bill in Michigan's legislature that asked to increase the weekly benefit amount. For context, Michigan's really low with the $362. Pennsylvania, Ohio, Illinois, all of these states have a much higher weekly benefit amount off the get-go, over $500.
Rachael, anything? Oh, please continue.
No, dollars per week. That's all I was saying. $500 per week.
All right, Rachael, anything else that you'd like to touch on today, or any other important information our audience should know about unemployment, about the situation with the Unemployment Insurance Agency's backlog of cases that we should know about before we let you go?
So there were some new questions that got released for people filing for the PUA And I know that there's been some confusion with those. The agency tried to send, or they did send out an email trying to explain what these questions were asking and how you should answer. It's hard to do that based on because every case is a case-by-case basis. But do your best in answering those questions. If you are not sure how you were supposed to answer those questions, answer them to the best of your ability and then put a message in your MyWham account explaining why you answered it that way and why you answered yes or no, and if you are concerned about that at all.
Rachael, thank you very, very much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
We appreciate it. Rachael Kohl, the director of the Workers' Rights Clinic at the University of Michigan, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Ronnie, still a lot of issues amounting from the Unemployment Insurance Agency in the state of Michigan. They continue to struggle, it seems, to get through this massive backlog of unemployment cases in the state of Michigan. And it looks like this company, Deloitte, coming in, that's going to maybe help them get through the fraud cases in particular, maybe a little bit of a help, but it keeps going back to that system they've been using, Midas, that's been giving them problems for many years. And maybe one good thing that will come out of this pandemic from the UIA's perspective is going to be a change in what systems they use, because the Midas system they've been using clearly has not been effective.
It's so great to have people like Rachael on the show because she can answer these questions. These are questions that anyone who is sitting at home and they're going through these problems with their benefits would have. And so to be able to have someone explain the process, what you need to do and how to go about correcting the issue is such great information. This is really going to hurt a lot of people at the end of the month if those federal benefits do go away, which I know that they have been talking about extending them, but there is going to be a lag time in there if they do in fact extend it, and for them to get redeployed back into your bank account. So it's got to be a tense time for a lot of people. I love the work share program though, and the way that runs, because if you do go back to work and it is part-time, or let's say you do go back full-time, you're a waitress or a bartender, you're not making the money that you were once before because the hours have been cut, or just the amount of people that you're serving has been cut as well. So these are good programs that they do have in place that, when utilized and utilized the way that it was intended and written for on paper, if it is going through and utilized in that way, it really is a huge benefit to the community and to the person who's sitting at home worried about putting food on their table.
And one thing that's going to continue to be a little bit of a concerning area here, as my mic flag falls off for the first time in forever, is that there's still seems to be a lot of communication issues between the UIA and claimants, and the UIA and those that are helping these claimants. I mean, we even talked yesterday to Representative Brenda Carter, and we've talked in previous weeks to other representatives in the local area like Rosemary Bayer and Jim Runstead, Representative Ryan Berman, among others, who say the same thing. We are speaking to hundreds of people, several hundred people, not just maybe 150, 200 people, but 300, 400, 500 plus people each and every day, or total, about these issues, trying to get answers, trying to help them get answers, and it takes us continuously pushing at the UIA just to get a status check. And it seems from what Rachael had been saying, that's still very much the case, which for me is the biggest cause for concern from the Michigan Unemployment Insurance Agency's perspective to the at this point in time.
I'm going to be curious to see how this plays out as employees go back to work. Let's say they do test positive. Who pays for that test? How often do they have to get tested? If you have to have 2 negative tests, are you off that time? Do you have to use your paid time off or your sick time during that time? And if this happens 2 or 3 times in a year, you're going to go through your PTO time. So if you're telling me I can't come back to work until I have 2 negative tests, and that's a 2-week, 3-week period, am I going to be paid for that? That, I think, is really going to be one of those issues as more and more people get back to work. We're going to see crop up that needs to be addressed.
And on top of that, going back to the issue of potentially extending the federal extra benefit of $600 per week, if that's not extended and you're in a case like that and you are laid off because you're out of PTO time, but you have to be temporarily laid off so that you can have the time off that you should be taking because you're sick and you have to wait through that incubation period. Now you're in a position where not only are you not working, not only are you laid off, you're making significantly less money on unemployment than you would be if you were working maybe multiple jobs, or were still getting paid on paid time off at the $362 a week limit in the state of Michigan. So there are mounting issues still to work through that the UIA has been working on and has to continue working on before we're able to even move the needle forward on all these other issues on top of that, because the COVID-19 pandemic is still number one right here. It's the number one issue to be tackling, even beyond these many hundreds of thousands of unemployment claims. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll get an update on absentee ballot submissions in the local area and see how one local community is helping to collect those absentee ballots without using the mail. That coming up and more. You're watching and listening to the Oakland County Megacast on Civic Center TV, on Birmingham Area Municipal Access, 89.3 Lakes FM and 88.1 WBFH. The Biff, the Megacast returns after this break.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart. Keep wearing a mask in public. And if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in the studios of 89.3 Lakes FM alongside Ronnie Dahl on our family of TV and radio stations on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99 on Civic Center TV and Birmingham Area Municipal Access. In addition, of course, to 89.3 Lakes FM and lakesfm.com and 88.1 WBFH. The Biff, bringing you all the latest information you need to know each and every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon, here on the Oakland County Megacast as we continue through this COVID-19 pandemic and discuss all the other areas of our society that this pandemic is touching beyond just the medical side and keeping us at home or keeping us out of work or working virtually, whatever the case may be. It's also impacting so many other areas of our life, especially in 2020, a big election year where we have 2 elections coming up, one in August, that's a primary election, and then one in November as well. That is the general election, of course. And absentee ballots, you're not able to vote absentee in the state of Michigan with no reason. You don't have to have a specific reason to vote absentee. And now we also see with the big news today that we had reported, that we have an article leading to on our website on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, that a judge ruled that absentee ballots that arrive after the election are not going to count. They have to arrive by the time the polls close on election day, and submitting those ballots any easier as possible is going to help a lot of voters get their voices heard in this upcoming election season. We have Erica Jones out in the field right now to see how one local municipality is helping to bridge that gap. Erica, where are you at today?
Hey, Tyler, I'm here at the West Bloomfield Town Hall outside on the side near the library, where they have a very convenient ballot drop box, as you can see. And this is great because, as we learned, the other day at the Oakland County press conference with County Executive Dave Coulter, we unfortunately do not yet have prepaid postage in Oakland County, although we are hoping for it for the November elections. For the August election, if you want to mail in your absentee ballot, you still need 2 stamps. Or if you don't want to pay for the 2 stamps, you can head on over to the West Bloomfield Town Hall. You can drive right up here and you can just drop your absentee ballot in the box. So it's super easy, and that way you don't need to pay for postage. It's contact free. Like I said, you just drive up and you drop it right in this box. Super easy, taken care of. Just a minute ago, there were 2 nice ladies that were voting absentee. Driving up, I got the opportunity to talk with them, and it was super easy for them, in and out. All they had to do was drive by. So it's definitely a great resource and a very convenient option for any local absentee voters.
Erica, just to clarify, this is only going to be, you're only able to submit your ballot, your absentee ballots, at this location at West Bloomfield Town Hall if you are a voter registered in West Bloomfield Township, correct?
Correct. We can check in later or near the beginning of next week to see how the other local communities are doing it, but this is the West Bloomfield drop box. And as I said, it's right outside of the West Bloomfield Town Hall. It is next to the library. So it's this side of the town hall right here, and then right next to the library near the back, this is the ballot drop box. And yes, like I said, you just drive right up here, drop it in the box. Super simple.
Well, Erica, I think that one concern that the residents may have, that voters in West Bloomfield in particular, where they're doing this, might have, is security of the ballot drop box. Yes, the police department is on the Civic Center campus on the other side of Town Hall over there, but there may be concerns with that ballot box being out there all day and all night, with people being able to submit their ballots there, of course, that maybe there's a chance of vandalism, or there's a chance of theft potentially that could spoil those ballots. Were you able to talk to anybody from the clerk's office about how they are addressing that potential issue?
That's a very interesting point. Unfortunately, today we were not able to set up any interviews with people from the clerk's office. My understanding is we're going to get the opportunity to talk with Township Clerk Debbie Binder next week, so we should be able to ask her all of these questions. But just from standing out here and looking, I can tell you that it is a very secure box. You have to drop your ballots very, very deep inside of there. It's hard to even get them in, so it would definitely be very, very hard to vandalize this in any sort of way. And like you said, it is on the campus where the police station is as well. So I would like to think they're not having too many issues with that, but those are definitely some great questions that we can talk to Debbie Binder about at the beginning of next week.
Erica, any other information that you got out there today about the ballot box, about absentee voting?
Nothing for today. That's what's going on here. And like I said, it's just a very easy option, and it saves you from having to pay for those 2 stamps. But hopefully by the November election, we will have prepaid postage. For now, though, this is a great local option. You can just drop them off. Takes 2 seconds, and you're good to go for the August election.
Erica, thank you very much for that report. We appreciate it. Erica Jones out at West Bloomfield Town Hall, just outside of the West Bloomfield Library on campus there, where there's a new ballot drop box at West Bloomfield Town Hall. If you are a West Bloomfield voter who is voting absentee, you can drop your ballot off there in that drop box right at the clerk's office. It is on campus of the Civic Center campus in West Bloomfield, right on the side of Town Hall. That's on the side of the library. You'll see a very large white, looks like a mailbox, kind of like you would see at the post office, where you can drop your absentee ballots there. Really innovative idea, Ronnie. And it'll be interesting to talk to Debbie Binder and to talk to other clerks as well, where this may be going on in other municipalities, particularly about the security of those ballot boxes. I would think that they would clear them every day at the end of the regular business hours at Town Hall. But really creative idea and innovative idea to help residents, especially as we've been talking about with the United States Postal Service having the issues that they're having financially, and with delivering mail in a timely manner, and with this new ruling that absentee ballots have to be in by the time polls close on election day in order to count.
If I was going to do an absentee ballot, I would feel much more comfortable dropping it in one of these drop boxes versus mailing it through the U.S. Postal Service. That way I know that they did receive it, and those boxes are pretty secure. But when you do the Postal Service, you never know if it's going to make it to its final destination and how long it's going to take. So this is another avenue we have to hand it to all the clerks across the country and here in the state of Michigan and the greater West Bloomfield area. They're getting very creative and trying to deal with this pandemic and the anticipated increase in voters for this upcoming primary as well as the general election. This is another avenue for us that we wouldn't have had in the past. So it's a good program. I think it's going to work, and I think it will put a lot of minds at ease as well that you did get to vote and that your vote counted.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how these clerks have had to pivot also during this and make new changes to their operations, to how they're going about planning for this upcoming election with the potential of less election workers. Actually, earlier on this week, we sent Erica Jones to the Oakland County campus for a press conference on their new democracy initiative with County Executive David Coulter and with the clerk of the city of Royal Oak, Melanie Hollis, and Oakland County's clerk and register of deeds, Lisa Brown, who actually talked about that adaptation and innovation at that press conference. Here's that clip.
Clerks have to be one of the most flexible elected officials there are. Just when we get one process set, the legislature changes something. The passage of 18.3 had a huge impact, and our clerks do a fabulous job of staying on top of it and figuring out, okay, what do I do now? You know, what we saw in May, and we didn't have any elections in May in Oakland County, but across the state, other counties did. And the executive order that came down was that there would be one open precinct per municipality for, if they had an election going on. So we have a lot to juggle with of staying on top of, but we do it, right? So whatever it is, if it's an executive order, if it's something the legislature passes down, something from the Secretary of State, we all work together to make sure that we have the process in place and to ensure that everybody's vote is counted and that it's secure and accurate.
Oakland County Clerk and Register of Deeds, Lisa Brown, earlier on this week, that's her quoted from the Oakland County Democracy Initiative press conference that happened earlier on this week at the Oakland County campus at their circuit court, is talking about, and as we continue to talk about the clerks being so innovative and having to adapt during this time. And it's been really interesting to see how different clerks departments throughout our local area have been pivoting and have been changing their operations in order to provide us safe, secure elections and other services that have to continue on during a pandemic, and we certainly appreciate all of their hard work as well. You are watching us on Civic Center TV and Birmingham Area Municipal Access on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. In addition, you're listening to us on a couple of great community radio stations, 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, West Bloomfield, Kego Harbor, Sylvan Lake, and 88.1 WBFH The Biff. In addition, today via Facebook Live, we are with the Greater West Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce and appreciate them being with us on the show today. We're going to take a break. When we return, we'll talk about student journalism. How are our young journalists who are learning to report the news being affected by the pandemic, and how is the pandemic helping them become better at telling stories and bringing truth to power? That coming up next on the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Ronnie Dahl. We will be back after this break.
This may seem uncomfortable, but so is being hooked to an IV, sleeping in a hospital bed, and fighting for your life. When it comes to COVID-19, comfort is not as important as saving lives. Wearing a mask can greatly reduce the chance of spreading the virus. So mask up, Michigan, every time you leave home.
As rivals, we don't always see eye to eye.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's gonna be who?
And whether we wear green
or blue.
But one thing we can all agree on, to help stop the spread of COVID-19, wear a mask.
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 The ball's in your court, Michigan.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Ronnie Dahl in the studios of Civic Center TV. and 89.3 Lakes FM. In addition, we're on 88.1 WBFH, The Biff, and on TV in Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, and the village of Franklin on Birmingham Area Municipal Access, a service of the Birmingham Area Cable Board. We thank them for being with us each and every day, bringing you the Oakland County Megacast on a variety of different media outlets. The Megacast is not just a regular TV show or a regular radio show, not just a podcast or a simulcast. It's a combination of all different forms of media broadcasting with partnership between community outlets, bringing you information you need to know from in your community right here in Oakland County. And we thank you for being with us each and every day as we continue to talk to a variety of different guests about a variety of different topics. And we've been really focusing over the last couple of weeks. We've had a lot of interesting conversations about the way that the media has been changing as this coronavirus pandemic continues on. And we have a lot of young journalists. We spoke to a journalism professor at Oakland University recently, Gary Gilbert, about this. And it's interesting to get a professor of journalism professor's perspective. Now let's get a perspective from more of a student angle. The Oakland Post is Oakland University's student newspaper, and joining us now is their editor-in-chief, Michael Pierce, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Michael, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate having you on. How are you? How have you been? How has the pandemic been going for you as a student?
It's been interesting for sure. I mean, I think it really honestly brought our staff together a lot because we all sort of had something really meaningful to talk about and cover, so that was a really positive side effect. A negative side effect, though, is that we had to really slow down on printing any summer issues or anything, and when we do resume that, we're going to have to produce a lot less, obviously, because there's just no one around right now. So it's been very interesting. It's been a little bit of positive and a little bit of negative, but overall, it's been a pretty worthwhile learning experience, I'd say, for all of us.
Especially for the young journalists in your operation, really in new journalism, new people in journalism, in any outlet. This is one of those times where it's such a great crisis, and there's so much going on. There's so many different stories, so many different angles. That's a really great trial by fire, I would think, to learn how to do effective reporting and people-based reporting on stories in the local area. Is that the case with you and your fellow student journalist at the Oakland Post?
Absolutely. I think a lot of the times when you're writing stories at a college, university, it can get a little monotonous with some of the things you do because there are very important topics to touch on, but a lot of the time some reporters will just be doing a lot of event coverage and event recap and stuff like that, or a lot of reviews or profiles, depending on what section they're in. And to have something that's really impactful for many people, and we're bringing in more traffic, I would say, because they're very important topics and everyone needs to know about it. It gives those younger journalists, especially, like a bigger sense of purpose, and it really makes them feel like their work is worthwhile. And I think that's been something that a lot of us have felt during this. It's like, wow, people are really reading what we're saying, and they're grateful for the coverage that we're providing.
Michael Pierce with us. He is the editor-in-chief at the Oakland Post, which is Oakland University's student newspaper. Michael, your thoughts on what we've also been seeing, not only in the coronavirus pandemic, but even before that. There's been a bit of an anti-journalist rhetoric in the United States going on for several years now, especially with the rise of fake news and claims of fake news. What are your thoughts and your fellow journalists' thoughts on that? Is there any concern for you and for your fellow student journalists going into this industry with a little bit of the bad rhetoric that's being thrown your way?
I say that there is some concern, but I also feel like over time that will correct itself because, the current president will be the current president forever. You will have different leaders who impact the masses, with different opinions of journalists, and I think eventually it'll flow back and forth, sort of an ebb and flow type of thing. I personally am not entirely worried because, especially now, I feel like Gary Gilbert has said this before, but the coronavirus pandemic has really sort of renewed the trust in journalists a little more than the previous couple of years. So I think the gradual change of opinions has swayed a little bit back in journalists' favor with this national health crisis. So I think it was a really down time, but a lot of people are learning how to do better journalism, and consumers are also learning where the best journalism comes from. So eventually I think this will correct itself, and good journalism will shine through. So some people are more worried than I am probably, but I believe that if you just do the best work possible, it'll shine through, and people will trust you. So.
Michael Pierce with us. He's the editor-in-chief at the Oakland Post. The Oakland Post, of course, is Oakland University's student newspaper. As we're in the times that we're in right now, it used to be maybe that people would go into journalism and say, okay, I want to be a news writer. I want to be a TV news reporter. I want to do news radio. Now you gotta kind of be able to do a little bit of everything, and you take into account social media as well, which has become really huge in reporting, especially breaking news, but also on keeping people updated on stories. As student journalists, how much of an emphasis do you put on reporting over social media, both accurately and timely, as you're bringing these stories to people that they need to be hearing?
Yeah, that's a very important aspect. We went through that a lot with the initial coronavirus news in March, with classes being shut down, people being moved off campus, everything like that, and even the subsequent news that broke after about the future of the 2020-21 school year. And social media was very important because we were among some of the first people to really get the news out there about classes being canceled and, the housing changes. So using that, our Facebook and Twitter and everything was very important to helping inform the students and their families. We had a comment on one of the stories that was thanking us for putting it out there and sharing it so quickly, because they were looking for this information about their daughter, about what happened to her housing, and they found it through us. So using those platforms is very important for us to help inform students, especially because that's a lot of what they're on, and that's where a lot of the students view stuff is through social media. They see it on Facebook, Twitter, and they view it through a mobile browser. So it's very important to stay as active as we can on those platforms while still keeping active facts and active journalism.
Michael Pierce with us. He's the editor-in-chief at the Oakland Post, which is Oakland University's student newspaper. And you learn a lot reporting on stories like this, as there's so much new news coming in each and every day. It's always something different. It's always of differing severity, maybe, Michael. And learning from telling stories in this context, where it's so important to get the information right and to be pointed but not necessarily worrisome to the audience, how does that help you going forward as a journalist, prepare to tell other stories that maybe are a little bit lighter or maybe even are somewhat more severe going forward?
Yeah, I think having so much pressure to get all of the facts correct is actually a beneficial thing. It makes everyone work, I would say, a little harder and check things a little bit more, and that's a great thing. For stories that are less important, it reminds us that even the smallest details can be make or break. As simple as the year something happened, or a certain spelling of someone's name, it can really change a reader's opinion of us. So getting those serious facts are very important, and we see that now more than ever. But it also reminds us that every fact is important, so we need to use the same sort of attention that we put on the serious facts, like the information about classes being canceled, as just spelling someone's name. We have to put the same dedication into that as we do everything.
Michael, going forward, how is the newspaper, the student newspaper, the Oakland Post, going to be different as a result of the pandemic?
It will be different for sure. I think we might cut back on print issues, but other than that, I can't see much else changing, because we do put such an emphasis on online stories as well. But at the same time, Oakland will still have a lot of people on campus, so we might still be producing a lot of print issues as is. A lot of people, professors and everything, really like the print issues as well. So for us, not a lot changes. We don't put on a ton of events either. So honestly, it's kind of business as usual at this point for us.
Michael Pierce with us. He's the editor-in-chief at the Oakland Post, which is Oakland University's student newspaper. Michael, there's still some... The fall is still unclear. We don't know what's going to happen with the coronavirus. We don't know how this pandemic is going to progress forward and how it's going to affect everything down the line. As of now, what are the plans in terms of the Oakland Post's reporting for the fall semester, being that school may be on campus, maybe off campus, or maybe a little bit of both?
Yeah, as of right now, we're looking at a little bit of both at Oakland, and our priority is definitely going to be developments with the virus and developments with the future, because things are always subject to change. That's one thing we've learned through this entire process these last, 4.5 months or so. Everything is subject to change. So I think we're going to have an increased responsibility to be flexible and to be quick. So we have to prepare that at any moment something might change and something might come up. Just yesterday, I wasn't planning on writing anything about this, but yesterday the Horizon League, the league that Oakland competes in, announced that fall sports will be postponed until at least October 1st. So in that situation, I have to be flexible. I have to jump in and immediately start reporting on that. And that'll change priority of things as well, because for the first month of school, we won't have a ton of sports stuff going on. So more priority will be given to campus news as more developments come. So it's really just being flexible and doing whatever we need to do to get the news out there as fast as we can and as accurately as we can.
Michael, anything else you'd like to touch on today? Anything else that's important for us to know before we let you go?
Not that I can think of. I'm just really proud of the staff these last 4 months, even when I wasn't editor-in-chief. Our previous editor-in-chief, Trevor, did a great job leading us, and I feel like it renewed a little bit of my faith in journalism, honestly, seeing everyone come together like they did. So I just wanted to give a little shout-out to the Oakland Post staff.
Well, we thank you very much for being with us today, Michael.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Michael Pierce, the editor-in-chief for the Oakland Post, which is of course, the student newspaper for Oakland University. And Ronnie, great to see that these young journalists are still putting so much effort and creativity into reporting on these stories from a college newspaper during a pandemic, as it's a time where a lot of college students would say, okay, I'm going to take a step back and try to get some work over the summer, or I'm going to try to not focus as much on the stress of the situation. And these journalists are still going head on, being like, we need to report on this, even if it is for the Oakland Post. And even if we know we have a limited audience, these are important stories that we still need to tell. And it really provides an optimistic view into the future of our reporters.
Again, that's where social media and technology comes into play, because people can access this information from all around the world, and it's at their fingertips. So it's so important to have people who are on the front lines out there getting the information and writing that information, sharing that information, because at the end of the day, that's what this is about. And journalism really matters more now than it has, I would say, in the past 10 years, because this pandemic is changing so rapidly that you have to stay on top of the news. What was said yesterday or put in place yesterday could change today. So that's where your mainstream media and your reliable media outlets are so important. And to have students to be able to put this on and do a great job, they also give their perspective. They come into it with their perspective, and they're living it right along with everyone else on campus, so they can think of different angles to a story or different issues from the pandemic that maybe you or I wouldn't think of, because they're in the midst of it as well.
It's really interesting to get their perspective, and really nice to get their perspective on it, especially as they're reporting on these Oakland University issues as they apply to the coronavirus pandemic, and are bringing that news to the Oakland University community, not just students and faculty, but also to parents, as Michael even told the story about in that interview. We appreciate having him on, and we appreciate you being with us. We'll be back in just a moment, and we'll talk more about the coronavirus pandemic and the issues it's bringing up, including this new mask order that the governor's put in place and what wrinkles that may provide for our restaurants and our lodging here in the state of Michigan. That and more coming up on the Oakland County Megacast. You are watching and listening to us on our family of TV and radio stations.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe, alongside Ronnie Dolan in the studios of 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. In addition, we're on Birmingham Area Municipal Access and 88.1 WBFH, The Biff, and we thank you for tuning in to our program each and every day. You can tune in to us Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon for our live shows, as well as throughout the afternoons for replays, and on the weekends for replays as well, where we will be on at 1 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and 8 o'clock each and every day. You can listen to our latest show, our show from today, all throughout the weekend. And we're also online, civiccentertv.com/megacast. You can watch full episodes, interviews, and clips right there whenever you so choose. If you're tuning in now and you got to tune out for a little bit, but you want to hear the interview with our next guest, you can do that on our website on demand on civiccentertv.com/megacast, as we are pleased to be joined once again by John Mcnamara, the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. John, welcome back to the program.
Nope, thanks for having me again. Good morning.
Appreciate it. How have you been? How's your team been at the MRLA recently?
Well, we're busy but good. Obviously, restaurants are open again, and people are starting to be more comfortable going out. It's obviously a different universe everyone's living in every sector of the economy, but we're happy to be open.
It's so critical during this season. We've spoken before with David Lorenz from Travel Michigan about how important travel in the state of Michigan and tourism, the tourism industry, and people moving about the state for recreation is going to be during the season, and hotels have played a huge part in that each and every year. And this is a year that's maybe a lot more concerning maybe for hotels, as people maybe decide, okay, we're going to go camping instead because we don't want to stay in a place. And we've talked before about all the safety measures that they're taking. It's been a while since we've last spoken. How are our hotels doing in the state of Michigan? Are they still in a state of flux, or are they doing better now than they were before?
They're largely still in a state of flux. We're seeing great numbers in Mackinac Island and, Traverse City and Petoskey, your more tourist populated areas. But, your more business centered hotels, obviously business travel is still largely frozen. So it sort of depends where you are geographically, but largely in a state of flux.
John, the governor's new mask executive order went into effect on Monday. Obviously, it's going to affect restaurants to some extent. I mean, they had some required masks unless you were eating before, and certainly now they're going to have to require masks in many of their locations. Similarly, with lodging places as well. How is that affecting businesses that are in your association?
It's been a mixed bag. We've had some members who have said, we're glad it's now a law and they can sort of push back on the governor. We also have people who aren't happy about it, largely because that first person you see in a restaurant is usually the host or hostess, and for a lot of people, that's their first job. So you're having people as young as 15 or 16 years old trying to tell adults what to do and enforce this law, and it just puts them in a tough spot.
How critical has local law enforcement been for these restaurants and for these hotels and so on that do have that situation where you have the 15 or 16-year-old that's at the front desk, that's the first person that you're talking to, and they have to address that situation, and maybe people are getting a little bit aggressive, are getting a little bit heated in that situation. How critical has local law enforcement been to helping these businesses keep that situation safe and cool?
No, they've been critical, and I'll specifically mention the Dearborn Police Department was one of the first to reach out to businesses in Dearborn, basically saying, if anyone gives you any trouble about wearing a mask or anything like that, call us and we will be there as soon as we can. And, we're also seeing some local law enforcement who have said, we're not going to enforce it. So again, it's a mixed bag, and it depends where you are in the great state of Michigan.
John Mcnamara with us. He is the Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association, with us again on the Oakland County Megacast. John, a lot of these businesses that have to be enforcing these mask rules already had regulations in place before. We know for sure that was the case with restaurants, many of whom had required masks before you got to your seat and before you were eating, and when you weren't eating, you were required to wear a mask. Now, of course, that changes the dynamic a little bit. How are restaurants changing that dynamic now to be able to still work properly and work as effectively as possible and provide a great experience while still following all the laws that are in place?
And it truly is a partnership. So obviously, restaurant employees are on their feet their entire shift, and they're wearing a mask their entire shift. So, all we're asking for the general public is that, maybe 30 seconds from when you walk in the door to when you sit down, to put that mask on. And for the most part, people are playing by the rules, and they're realizing that your mask is your cost of admission right now in the world we're living in. Unfortunately, not everyone is, and that's restaurants are dealing with that on a case by case basis. But for the most part, everyone's doing their job and following the rules and complying.
John Mcnamara with us. He's the Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. And we talked about previously about how important travel and tourism is to the state of Michigan, and we talked about the state of the hotels in our state right now. For those who maybe are concerned, we knew before when you explained it, the hotels were surprisingly taking a lot more safety measures than maybe one would think on the surface. But at this point in time, with all that we've learned in the last month or two since we've last had you on, how much safer are hotels now for COVID-related guidelines than they maybe were before?
Obviously, we're continuing to learn more about this pandemic and what it does. But, hotels are doing anything and everything they can. Lobbies are being cleaned every hour on the hour. They're spacing people between every other room when they can. They're washing everything daily. Their hotels are still safe. Hotels were safe during this whole time. Again, hotels were never forced to be closed. So anyone who is, hesitant, I would just encourage you to go out, give hotels that opportunity to prove how safe they are and prove what they will do to keep you safe during all of this. But the hospitality industry was a vanguard for health and safety before this outbreak, and they're continuing to be throughout this.
John, we've seen a recent spike in COVID-19 cases in the state of Michigan. Just earlier on in the week, those cases were around 400 to 500. Last week, the high end was around 600. And then midweek this week, we saw a large spike up to right around 891 cases in the state of Michigan, with another 158 probable cases as well. Any cause for concern for our restaurants in particular, for our hotels also, that there may be a second shutdown? And what would a second shutdown do to our restaurant and hotel industries in the state of Michigan?
Absolutely. And I get this question multiple times a day from members just sort of asking what's going to happen. I think a second shutdown, if it happened, would probably look something like indoor dining is closed. You could still do outdoor and you could still do takeout, but it would be catastrophic to the industry. I mean, there are people who are still not even close to back to where they should be, and staff who don't want to come back because it's safe. And, there's still plenty of people in the general public who are not comfortable going into a restaurant again, and that's completely fine. We understand that concern. But, a second shutdown would be, detrimental to this industry.
And all the more reason then, in that case, that we're urging people to continue to wear their masks and continue to follow those guidelines, because that, even if it's doing a small part, it's doing some part to help keep these businesses open who have already struggled so much during this pandemic to provide the same services that they're typically providing, but at with less staff and with less of a profit margin coming in than they already had.
Absolutely. And, you know, when this first all happened back in March, you know, everyone was very supportive, and, you know, there was Takeout Tuesday, and there was, you need to continue to tip in cash and do all the things that you can do to help the restaurants. And the most important thing you can do to help the restaurants right now is wear your mask. And, you know, again, it's not long. It's the time you walk in the door, the time you sit down at a table or sit down at the bar, you know, and if you get up when you leave, wear it until you get out the door. So we're not asking a lot of anyone to do this, and it's, you know, it's helpful to the general public. It's helpful to the staff. You know, it's their job. They have bills to pay too, and, you know, if they can't do their job, then it's just bad for the industry, and it's bad for everyone.
John, just another couple minutes before we let you go. We talk a lot about the regulations in place in restaurants in terms of mask wearing. What about in the hotels? Like, and a lot of the time you're in your own room, you're not around a lot of other people, so you don't have to really wear a mask in that situation. But where are people required to be wearing masks when they are in a hotel, and what does that look like?
So it would be, you know, when you're checking in, we're seeing a lot of people who are going to contactless check-in, and even, you know, if you obviously, you know, you can't walk into the lobby and sit down and do a breakfast buffet right now. We're seeing a lot of people who will put, you know, a yogurt, a bottle of water, and a piece of fruit in a brown bag. And you know, that's sort of the breakfast to go. So, I mean, it would be anytime you're in a lobby, walking in or out of a public space. But obviously, you know, once you're in your room, you don't need to have it on. The gyms are currently closed. The pools are currently closed. So, I mean, there aren't really gathering spaces in hotels available right now. So it would just be, you know, when you're getting to your room or when you're getting to your car to leave.
John, anything else that's important for us to know before we let you go today?
I would say no, and I'll quote our governor and say, mask up Michigan, and do everything you can to encourage your friends to do the same.
John, we thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. John Mcnamara, the Vice President of Government Affairs with the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. And I mean, these industries have already been so hard hit by the pandemic, and considering what's going on in our state, definitely to a much larger extent in other neighboring states right now, it's got to be of huge concern for them that a second shutdown of any kind, whether it's a move back to phase 3 or a lower phase, would be devastating to those industries that in the state of Michigan are so critical to various economies in various regions of the state.
If we shut down restaurants again, you're going to have a lot of these restaurants close for good. Curbside takeout can only go so far. You have to remember a good portion of a restaurant's revenue actually comes from the alcohol sales. And when you're in a restaurant, you would sit, and it's like an event, right? So you're going with friends, you're talking, you could stay there for an hour, hour and a half, and during that time you're going to have your cocktails, and that's where they get a big part of their profit margin. So if I'm doing takeout, even though we have takeout to go now, it's still cutting into that bottom line of the restaurants. And I think you're going to start to see some of them close down. Even if we don't go back to phase 3, I know in my neighborhood, there are still some restaurants that have not fully reopened yet. They're still just doing catering or carry out.
They're definitely very much affected by this pandemic, whether it be short staffing, whether it be smaller profit margins, whether it be not entirely reopening or being closed altogether. And more shutdowns will cause more problems, which is why John Mcnamara and the MRLA, as well as many other industries, are very much sticking with the governor on this, where they haven't before. And even early on in the pandemic, where they said, we can open our restaurants, we're fine, you're keeping us closed. Now they're saying we are standing with the governor and with this decision because we want to get out of this pandemic as soon as we possibly can. We definitely cannot afford to go back. It would be devastating to our business. And so, once again, we're encouraging everybody for the safety of themselves and others, of course, and for the prosperity of our local businesses who have been through so much, to wear your mask and take those precautions that are required of you during this time. We're going to take a quick break. We'll review today's top headlines, and then we'll speak with the mayor of Troy here on the Oakland County Megacast. You're watching us on a family of TV and radio stations. Ronnie and I will return after this break.
Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonae Khaldun. I'm the Chief Medical Executive for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The people who are at highest risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19 are the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. That includes people with heart disease, diabetes, COPD, or those who have compromised immune systems. People who are in those categories should right now be staying at home as much as possible and not going out if it is not essential. If you fit into one of those categories, those are the things you should do. And if you have a family member who fits into one of those categories, you should be checking in on them and making sure they are following those guidelines. There's something everyone can do to protect the community from COVID-19.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Ronnie Dole in the studios of 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. In addition, thank you for tuning in on Birmingham Area Municipal Access and on 88.1 WBFH The Biff. In addition, today our Facebook partner is the West Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce. We thank them and their team, especially Executive Director Suzanne Levine and their Social Media Director Vidu Kukuru, for helping us get on the show today on their Facebook page via Facebook Live, and appreciate their continued partnership as we bring you the top stories from around the Oakland County area in regards to COVID-19 and more. More stories all online. CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus, where our top stories today. Absentee ballots that arrive after the election will not count. The Michigan Appeals Court has denied a request to require the counting of absentee ballots received after the time polls close on Election Day. The ruling says that the deadline remains intact despite voters' approval of a constitutional amendment that expanded mail-in voting in the state of Michigan, which is seen as one of the battleground states in November's presidential election. The court ruled in a 2-1 decision released Wednesday, and says that it is up to lawmakers to change the deadline. The League of Women Voters of Michigan and 3 voters sued in May, seeing a declaration that absentee ballots may be counted as long as they are mailed on or before Election Day and that they are received at least within 6 days of the election. Definitely complicates how people who are absentee voting, which is going to be seeing a huge boom in this year's election cycle, complicates how they are submitting their votes.
And it goes back to what we've been talking about. If you are going to vote absentee, you need to make sure you get it in early. So just in your mind, think the deadline is a week earlier, because you need to give enough time to ensure that the Postal Service actually gets it delivered to its destination and it doesn't get lost in the mail.
It's also been a push to extend the federal unemployment benefits as well. Making news at CivicCenterTV.com/coronavirus. Panic is setting in for those collecting federal unemployment but still have no hope of returning to work. Under the CARES Act passed in March, Congress lengthened the duration of unemployment benefits to 39 weeks with an extra $600 a week for 4 months. With that set to expire at the end of this month, now Michigan representatives are making efforts to move an extension through Washington. Quote, "People think none of us care, but we do care. And that's why this matters," said U.S. Representative Debbie Dingell from Michigan's 12th District. According to the Economic Policy Institute, during the pandemic, 36.4 million people have applied for unemployment benefits nationwide, and 2.4 million workers applied for benefits just last week, with 50,000 of them from the state of Michigan. We've talked about this with Rachael Kohl, Ronnie, and it's going to be something that's going to be a huge issue for a lot of unemployed workers in the state of Michigan if they get to the end of this month and their benefits have expired.
No one can live on $350 a week, let's be honest. So this extra $600 a week has been a lifeline for thousands and thousands of people. However, as the economy is reopening, you're also having business owners struggle getting employees to come back to work because they are making so much on their unemployment.
Yeah, it's continuing to be a struggle because people want to stay safe, but they're also thinking about it as, well, I'm making more money on unemployment. Why would I go back to work until I absolutely need to? Sure, I'll wait till the end of the month when this expires, and then I'll go back to work, and I'll still be making the same amount of money, just $600 less a week without being on unemployment. And if they extend the deadline, then I'll go from there. So it creates some questions in there, but definitely for people that are truly unemployed and unable to get work, that's going to be absolutely huge for them going forward. And more on the unemployment front, Michigan has hired an accounting firm to help investigate unemployment fraud. As of June 12th, the UIA flagged 140,000 unemployment claims as potentially fraudulent, and the UIA has now brought in Deloitte, a company that will help receive programs and systems at the UIA and assist with the investigation of imposter and fraudulent claims. The UIA said in an announcement, the UIA has paid nearly $15 billion to more than 2 million claimants since the governor issued a state of emergency over the pandemic in March. So help that they absolutely needed at the UIA is now coming to help with this fraudulent claims issue.
Keep in mind, when you're filing these false claims, you're actually stealing from us. We are the taxpayer, and so when you're trying to get one over on the system, you're actually getting one over on us, the taxpayers, who are actually paying for this service. So be kind. Don't take advantage of a system that is so desperately needed right now. Leave it for the people who need it to be able to eat, to stay in their homes and pay their utility bills. That's what it's intended for. That's what we need to keep it for.
Yeah, and these people that are trying to get their unemployment checks are having enough issue as it stands, just getting an answer on that money that they have earned by being a worker in the state of Michigan and by being laid off. They don't need extra hurdles to be overcoming as well. So hopefully that help will help the people of the state of Michigan get their claims more efficiently and maybe get out of this potential fraudulence as soon as possible. We'll keep up on that story, of course, and more online at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. As that makes news and affects people of all different places in Oakland County. Those residents in all of our coverage area, including in the city of Troy, and we're pleased to be joined now by our last guest today, the mayor of Troy, Ethan Baker, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Mayor Baker, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be back.
How are you? How's the city of Troy been doing since we last spoke?
You know, we're doing really well in Troy. Our COVID numbers don't seem to be increasing like they are in other parts of even Oakland County, and our businesses are getting back in shape, and our residents, I think, have done a really good job of making sure we can reopen safely, even though there's some hiccups along the way. But proud to be the mayor of Troy. I think Troy's in excellent shape to recover from this when we get to that.
The last time we had you on, Mayor, the city of Troy's offices had not been opened yet. I would assume now that they are open. What services have returned to the city of Troy, at least in person at City Hall? What are still not at City Hall, but maybe are through other means?
Well, you shouldn't make assumptions. Actually, City Hall is not yet formally open to the public.
Usually right.
Yeah. You know, we've been really successful with our Call City Hall campaign. Basically, any phone number you dial for City Hall will direct the department head or department to their cell phone if they're working at home, or if they're in the office, they're still working there. And most of what we need to accomplish for the residents of Troy and for the businesses can be accomplished over the phone or online. So we've stayed with that for as long as longer than other communities. And it's really been effective. We haven't been receiving complaints from people who are lacking services or in need of something. That said, we are starting to phase into now allowing residents and the members of the public to come into City Hall by appointment only. Sometimes people, they're paying property taxes. They're paying with cash, for example. You can't do that online. So they're going to come in, you can have an appointment. Our city clerk's office, certainly with the August 4th election coming up, has been very busy, and that staff is fully working from their inside City Hall, although the absentee voting that typically happens or can happen at the city clerk's office will be adjusted, and there'll be an opportunity to do it outside through some drive-through operations and some unique things we've set up.
Yeah, I was just about to ask about that because we see the news coming in today. The absentee ballots that are not submitted they're not submitted and fully into their municipalities by the time that polls close on election day will not count, and many municipalities are preparing for that. Or have already been preparing for a situation similar to that. West Bloomfield Township has a ballot drop box, kind of like you would see as a postal service mailbox, one of those larger ones. And you mentioned that there are certain things in place in Troy that are in the works for absentee ballots that would be other than just mailing them in. Can you elaborate a little bit on what some of those programs are?
Sure thing. Well, what we've seen already is we've had a record number of absentee ballots sent out to our residents. I believe as of Monday, we've sent out over 18,000 ballots, which is more than we've ever sent out in the city of Troy. And so our most ever, I think, has been about 15,000 absentee ballots, and that was during the 2008 general presidential election. So to have so far over 18,000 go out for an August primary tells you that people are more comfortable voting via absentee at this point. So we've installed 2 huge brand new ballot drop boxes at the east and west entrances of City Hall. They're brightly colored. You can't miss them. They'll be checked regularly from now until Election Day, at least once every 24 hours. They're very secure. Only the city clerk has key to that, and it's protected. We've also set up drive-through, like a drive-through city clerk's office for Saturday, July 25th, as well as the Saturday just before the August 4th primary, where you can come through and drive through the City Hall parking lot. We'll have city clerk staff out there meeting you curbside with their full computers, with their full secure systems. You can request an absentee ballot there. You can put in your application. You can turn in the ballot, certainly, if you'd like to hand it directly to a person. But everything will be secure. And if you get a ballot there at that time, you can then go and park, fill out your ballot, and then bring it back and drop it off if you like. And it'll, of course, be very secure. We've just authorized a purchase of an additional absentee ballot counting machine. So we will have our 5th high-speed counter. And we're prepared for this August 4th election. I think we've got one of the best city clerks in the region, and she's worked very hard to make sure she's got her staff ready to go. And we're ready for August 4th. And also, all precincts will still be open for in-person voting on August 4th as normal. So City of Troy is ready and prepared for this election.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask you, how much of a budget hit do you think you're taking during this pandemic, and how are you going to try to plug those holes in the budget so that you don't have to lay off people?
Sure. Well, we're not sure yet, right? We approved our budget for the fiscal year 20 to 21 year, which started July 1st. We approved that during the pandemic, which was kind of an unprecedented and interesting experience. We're fortunate in Troy that the majority of our revenues come from property taxes, and our property tax base is level and was set already prior to the pandemic happening. So this next fiscal year, we don't expect a huge hit to our budget. That said, there will be a reduction in state shared revenue coming out of Lansing, at least as of right now. I mean, we see what their numbers are doing, and they're way, way down as far as revenue collection. So that's, of course, going to affect us at the cities, villages, and townships. We have a very healthy unassigned fund balance, which is like our rainy day fund that will get us through as necessary. And we're hoping not to have to make any cuts and layoffs. Back in 2008, 2009, the Great Recession, we laid off about 1/3 of our workforce in the city of Troy, and we really never built that back up. So we're about as lean as we could be from that standpoint, and we're not really in the position to continue to cut workforce if we want to provide the same services that we've been providing.
The city of Troy is such a shopping and restaurant destination. How is your business community holding up?
They're resilient, they're strong, they're working really hard. Obviously, I've been to Somerset. We talked about Somerset last time I was on. I think it had just opened. There's still people filling Somerset and shopping, so I think that's helping. The restaurants are more of a concern, I think. Your previous guest, John Mcnamara, I was listening to him, and the last thing he said is, wear your mask. I think that's extremely important. I have a good friend who's a restaurant owner here in Troy, a very successful restaurant. But, he doesn't like that he has to enforce people wearing masks, but he recognizes that he's required to. And he said, quite frankly, please wear your mask. I can't afford to lose my liquor license or to lose my business license because you don't want to wear a mask. And so I think it's important for people to remember that these businesses depend on us wearing our masks, regardless of what you think about it politically. If you want our business community to stay intact here in the city of Troy, we have to do what we're required to do by the state government. So, I think that we will have to see as time goes on, when things do start to reopen, when weather changes and people can't sit outside to eat, that's going to really affect the restaurants if we're still at a 50% capacity level. So I'm hopeful we can keep the numbers in check and allow for increased capacity in our restaurants so that they don't suffer as we head into fall.
Mayor Ethan Baker with us on the Oakland County Megacast all throughout the area on our family of TV and radio stations. Mayor Baker, we've talked to a lot of businesses individually in a lot of different municipalities in our coverage area, and a lot of them have been working through their own ways to put forth mask enforcement policies in terms of maybe having someone at the front door, having extra masks to hand out, and so on. And many of them have asked their local police and fire departments for help in that. How helpful has the Troy Police Department been for the local business community in Troy to help them prepare for enforcing this on the front lines before any issues would have to go to the police department, and how to maybe prepare for the potential for unruly people that don't want to follow these mask orders?
Sure, and that's what we're faced with right now. Our police department has done a good job of helping businesses, giving them the education, the resources, the tools, everything they need to do their best in this case. Obviously, we can't afford, and we don't have the police force to put a cop at every restaurant or business in the city to enforce it as that mechanism. But we're there to stand with you if you need help as best we can, recognizing there are all sorts of challenges in the enforcement of some of these orders. And really, we're, public safety, and, we have to, City of Troy Police Department has to focus on traditional crimes as well. They can't just be about enforcing mask violations. But, what I've seen personally is that people are very respectful of this. I mean, I've been out to our restaurants, I've been out in the public places. People are wearing masks for the most part. There are people who aren't going to wear it, and you see them, and I've seen restaurants, I've seen businesses and ask them to leave because they haven't had their masks, and that's what they're required to do, and they're handling it appropriately. Personally, I was at Starbucks the other day, and I was on the phone when I got there, and I ran into Starbucks and I didn't have my mask on, and the Starbucks barista said, hey, do you have a mask? And of course I just forgot, and I felt terrible about it, and ran back out to my car and put my mask on. And, she was uncomfortable having to do it, but she handled it in a very kind and respectful way. And I think that that's the way to do it. And, even restaurant owners have strong feelings about masks, and the governor herself, but they recognize what they need to do to keep their businesses going is to follow these orders. So, I've seen signs that say, we don't like the governor's order, but in order for us to stay in business, you have to wear your mask. That works too. You can make your political statements and still support wearing the mask so you stay in line with the law. I think that's really important.
Mayor Baker, anything else that's would be interesting for us to know or important for us to know about the city of Troy right now before we let you go today?
I think, City of Troy, I'm a big cheerleader for our city. But we're working hard. Our restaurants are open. Our shops are open. Please get out there. And, if you're not afraid to go out, please go out, be safe, use sanitizer, wear your mask, go to our local retailers, go to our restaurants, whether it's curbside, whether it's in person, they are prepared to serve you and to do it in a safe manner. And they really do depend on having you there. Their tips, their bottom lines. I mean, it's a tough time for a lot of people. And City of Troy welcomes you always. We're ready to have you in our city, and we look forward to serving you any way we can.
Mayor, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, appreciate having you on. You as well. Mayor Ethan Baker from the City of Troy with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And every municipality, Ronnie, is going to be facing this in a different way. Some have fully reopened their municipal facilities to regular services. Some have done so by appointment only or by limited capacity. And then on top of that, with the elections, I really loved hearing what Mayor Baker had to say about the different programs they're putting in place to help absentee voters who, many of whom have said this year, I'm voting absentee simply because I don't know how safe the polls are going to be or how safe I'm going to feel going to the polls. And they're providing as much opportunity as possible for these people to fulfill the right that they voted to be able to have in terms of a constitutional amendment in the last election, but still do so safely. And they have so many programs in place just for that. It's really amazing to see how each different municipality is facing this pandemic in a different way.
And they are getting very creative and, like you said before, innovative in how they can continue to provide the services to the public so that we can have our voices heard in this upcoming election. Already they're seeing such a high number of absentee ballots rolling into the clerk's office. So I think this is going to continue, not just past, the primary, but the general election. Into the future, I think you're going to start to see more and more people start to vote absentee because it is easier and you can do it on your own timeline as well.
And it's great also to see this week that the Oakland County, that various clerks throughout Oakland County, that the Oakland County office as well, is working with these municipalities on these election issues because they want people to go out to the polls. They want people to know that you can go out to the polls and you can vote safely and you can vote securely. But you also have a constitutional right in the state of Michigan to vote by absentee ballot for no reason, as long as you are a registered voter in the state of Michigan. And we want to make sure that every voice that wants to be heard in this election is able to be heard, because especially in a pandemic, it becomes a lot easier for people to go onto the sidelines or be forced to the sidelines during an election out of an abundance of caution or fears for their own safety or fears for the security of those elections. And so it's great to see that true team effort, not only on elections, but on a variety of other services that are necessities during this pandemic, that we're seeing our local municipalities working together.
The one thing I would like to see them add to the ballot boxes that they're installing is like some way or another for them to disperse the I voted sticker, so that when you're leaving, you drop it, maybe the little sticker, comes out, because it's a sense of pride. I want my sticker.
Everybody wants their sticker, and they get it when they go to the polls, but maybe you don't get it. Sending an absentee ballot in the mail. What are they going to do? They're going to mail you back a sticker? That doesn't seem doesn't seem like a good use of municipal funds, now does it? So that would be a great idea if they're able to add that some way that's effective and safe. I think that would be a nice, cute little gesture to be making when you're from the municipalities for their voters. Definitely if they're in a situation like Mayor Baker had mentioned with the drive-in absentee voting. If they're not handing out I voted stickers there, then I question their motives in this. I truly
We should have asked them.
We should have asked them. You know what? Maybe we'll have another opportunity. Mayor Baker loves being on with us. We love having him on. We'll have another opportunity. There's still plenty of time before the August 4th primary and the October general election for us to inquire about whether or not they will be handing out I voted stickers to their absentee voters. It is a serious issue, and we will stay on top of it. That is going to do it for our program this week, our live shows this week, alongside Ronnie Dahl. I'm Tyler Keefe, thanking you for tuning in on our family of TV and radio stations. As always, you can hear us Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon for new shows on Civic Center TV and Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Those channels on Comcast 15 and AT&T Channel 99. In addition, you can watch Civic Center TV on civiccentertv.com. If you just go to our homepage, I'll even pull it up for you right here. For those of you watching on TV that may be out and about and out of the coverage area in the coming days, go to civiccentertv.com and click on Watch Live, and you're going to be able to watch all of our original programming live right on your screen, whether it's on your tablet, on your phone, or on your computer, or another device. And civiccentertv.com/megacast. Find more information about our partnering stations, watch full episodes, watch clips, and all interviews on demand on our website. Right from there, your one-stop shop for all Megacast programming. And of course, we can't say it enough, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, which is your home for up-to-date news and information about COVID-19 and other top stories in our local area. In addition, we have links to the Centers for Disease Control, the state of Michigan, and Oakland County's COVID-19 pages, and links to all your municipal government pages as well, so that you can get updates on what's going on in your hometown straight from those sources without having to do a whole lot of extra researching on top of that. So we thank you for tuning in, as always, 10 a.m. to 12 noon, Monday through Friday for the Oakland County Megacast. We also thank all of our guests today, including Rosemary Max from Oakland University, Rachael Kohl from the University of Michigan Workers' Rights Clinic, Michael Pierce, the editor-in-chief of the Oakland Post, John Mcnamara from the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association, Mayor Ethan Baker of Troy, and, of course, all of our partnering stations and our entire crew. For Ronnie Dahl, I'm Tyler Keefe, thanking you for tuning in. The Oakland County Megacast returns on Monday.